Behold the power axe, lightning quick and hard as diamond.
I'm Matt.
I'm Kerry.
We are the Stagmer brothers of Baltimore Knife and Sword. We're going to be building some of your favorite weapons, and some weapons that you've never seen before.
This is Man-at-Arms, Reforged.
Power Axe!
Fans have been begging to see a Power Ranger build on Man-at-Arms. This is our first one, and because it's our first one, we decided to do the biggest one, the Black Ranger's axe.
We're going to build the Cosmic Cannon, the Black Power Ranger's axe rifle combination, if you will. This will serve as the blade section. We'll weld a piece of tool steel to the edge, grind it and harden it. For the handle and barrel, I'll use a piece of heavy wall tubing. For the main body here, we'll go ahead and do some shaping and sculpting on our side panels on the grinders. We'll go ahead and draw it up into AutoCAD, cut our parts out on the plasma table, and then begin the assembly.
This build is going to be heavy, intense stock removal. We're going to show you multiple methods. Basically, going to start from big, thick plates of steel and grind them away, lay them away, mill them away, show you how we just remove material to create something beautiful. John's done most of the patterning on this. I'm just going to give him some rough AutoCAD drawings to start from, and he can then tweak them from his drawings from there and get them cut out.
Now that I have all my parts drawn in the AutoCAD system and imported into the G-code generator, we're going to go ahead and cut them out on the plasma table.
Rather than making this from one big monolithic piece of steel, John has chosen to make it from multiple pieces. We'll be plasma cutting these and then fabricating them together.
Now that we're done burning our pieces out, we'll start morphing this into an axe.
For our axe handle, John chose to use some thick wall tubing. The reason being is in the TV show, it's not only an axe, but it's a gun as well. I've already removed some material on the flats here. Now what I have to do is I'm going to grind a groove in the central body of the axe so it fits nice and flush to the pipe.
Matt actually goes to the grinder and grinds a fuller in the same way you would see him do it on a blade.
This is one of the large coin-shaped discs that I cut out earlier. I'm going to grind a large, hard bevel on these discs, leaving a large flat area for them to place the logo.
We're going to use W1 for the Power Ranger's axe edge. I'm going to use a scrap of the same 3/8 plate John used to cut out the parts as a kiss block. A kiss block in blacksmithing world is just a block that goes under the power hammer that lets you forge to a specific dimension. It's not a slam block. You don't slam the dies down onto it. You just come down and kiss them and lets you know that you're at the dimension you want. Now that it's hot fit, it's ready to go to John for welding.
This is my axe blade. I went ahead and put a piece of scrap steel, tack welded to the spine to keep my distance here from moving from the intense heat of the weld. This here is the tool steel edge that you saw Sam heat shape. I beveled it, tacked it into place, both sides. Now we're going to clamp it down to the table and go ahead and burn it on.
Using the MIG welder, John attaches our high carbon edge to the body of the axe. All right, now that we got our high carbon edge welded on and blended a little bit, we also added a long bar, tack welded it. This will get removed later. This is really gonna allow me to have a lot more leverage to control that edge grind. So I'm gonna hog off a whole lot of this metal before heat treating. I don't wanna go all the way before heat treating because we wanna leave some material there just to ensure that we don't get any edge cracking during the quench. But I'm gonna go ahead and move to a 24 grit, start removing that metal on the edge.
In order to give me the thickness of the box that I want, I went ahead and tack welded the riser or spacer portion to the center section of my axe. Now we're going to go ahead and clamp it onto the table and finish burning the welds in. Okay, we've got the spacer welded on both sides. What this does, the top cover will get welded on in plates like that. This gives us the thickness to clear the handle.
Now that we have all our pieces fit where they're gonna go, John can start forming that handle. He's gonna move to the lathe, cut in our handle grooves, and then we're gonna later brass inside those grooves.
But I chucked up a piece of 1-inch bar stock here in the lathe. This will serve as the finial for the top spike, if you will, on our Power Rangers axe. And we're going to get ready to turn it to shape.
One, two, okay. Hello. First thing we have to do is heat up the pipe. Once the pipe is hot, we can lay some brass inside the grooves, giving us the yellow color we intend to achieve. Oh, all right. Here we go. All right.
John did a stellar job on this handle. Now, since we're just done using our heat treating forge, we're gonna use the residual heat to heat up this entire pipe and then use the brass wheel to deposit that brass into the grooves.
Earlier, you watched me on the lathe turn down the shape for my finial, which will be the top spike on the axe. Now we're going to give it some final polish before we assemble it. Now we're ready for the final polish on my disc. Once we've done that, we'll hand it off to Ilya to go ahead and place the mastodon right in here. And then, once we're finished with polishing on the side plate, we'll go ahead and weld it into place.
Ilya's gonna heat treat this axe. We have to be really careful because we're gonna take the risk and we're gonna quench it in water, so the temperature's gotta be spot on or we'll have to start from scratch.
The axe edge has been quenched. Now it's time to check the hardness using a file. If the file skates or gives a glassy sound, means the edge is plenty hard. If the file bites in, means the edge is not hard enough and we have to quench again. Hear the sound here, where it's hard edge, and here's the sound here. That's the difference between a hard edge and a soft back.
The next step in the evolution of our Power Ranger build is to go ahead and polish out the burrs on our handle. Then we'll do some grinding and fitting of the finial so that it fits in the hole in the end. We're grinding some of the excess material off the end of my pommel. You notice I've used a very large piece of tubing. By taking some of the excess off on the grinder, it'll make it easier to machine on the lathe. The next step is for me to take the rear gun sight, machine a slot in the pommel, and we'll fit her in there, weld her into place.
Ilya is going to use some of the residual heat left over from the heat treat in the forge to go ahead and add some temper to this edge. We're going to go back and we're going to temper it a little more later, but to prevent it from cracking during handling, we wanted to make sure we had temper on it right away.
Now that my blade has been heat treated, I was able to go ahead and remove the temporary bar. I'd put up the spine, polished off the fire scale, installed part of my risers. Now we're going to finish grinding the edges. Now that we have all the edges ground and polished, I went and laid out for some decorative lines that we'll grind in using the knife wheel. All right, we have all our parts tack welded into place. The next step, do the full weld burn-in on all sides. We're in the home stretch now. I went ahead and got the right side plate tacked on, and we're going to put on the left side.
I think John's trying to mess with me, because I told him that this axe had to be a lot closer to sharp before he welded it all together. And now, it weighs a ton. So I'm gonna move the 220 machine, take my time, and refine that edge. This project's now ready for its tips and tails. So John welds on the pommel and the top spike, and now this project is really starting to take shape.
Late yesterday, I was able to mask off our Power Ranger's axe and get the paint applied to the base surface. Now we're going to remove the masking and see how it looks.
I'm really proud of our team on this build. This axe turned out awesome. It's really heavy, but hey, what do you expect when you take a plastic weapon from a TV show, turn it into a real steel, smashing, bashing, badass axe?
Click here to subscribe or click here to watch more episodes. Thanks for watching Man-at-Arms Reforged. We need to know what you want the guys to build, so tell us in the comments below what weapons you want to see next.